everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm It's Robbie Rhino, and in today's video I have a full review for you of the brand new Cold War premium tank. It's the Chieftain Concept Test Rig, or the Chieftain CTR. So this is a Western Alliance premium era 2 tank destroyer, and it's quite an unusual tank. It's not like anything we have in the Cold War game mode. Thus far, it can play a tank destroyer and a heavy tank role very, very well, thanks to this thick frontal armour and this very dangerous 120mm caliber gun. And in today's video, I'll go over all of the stats in just a little bit over here on Excel, where we're going to be comparing to the G.I. Joe Wolverine, which is a tank destroyer era 2, the Chieftain Hybrid 120, which is a heavy tank, and the Leopard VT2, which is a medium tank with some pretty hefty armour. So we'll see how the Chieftain CTR holds up. I'll talk you through my commander and equipment setup. We will have a look at how that affects the base stats of this vehicle, and then I'll talk you through the armour profile in the armour viewer in the garage to see what the armour is like on the Chieftain CTR. But this is the first look at the Chieftain CTR. As you can see, it's a pretty long vehicle. The gun is attached directly to the hull of this vehicle, and it can only move 15 degrees to the left and right, so you do have to move your hull to be able to reposition your gun and shoot at your enemies. As you can see, it's quite a long vehicle from the side, so we'll have to see whether the concealment rating holds up, and yeah, see how thick this frontal armour is. As you can see, there's various sections over the front. But if you want to pick up this vehicle, let's have a look at the price. It was released today on the 16th of January as I'm making this video, and you can get it until the 13th of February in 3 different bundles as usual. You can get the Ultimate Bundle, which comes with equipment, premium time and boosters for 16,500 gold. The Loaded Bundle, which comes with premium time and boosters for 14,500 gold. And the base price of this vehicle is 12,900 gold. So a pretty hefty price, and you're going to have to really enjoy this vehicle, or it's going to have to be really competitive for a lot of people to part with that much gold, considering the kind of sales that go on. This is the artwork that WoT Tanks Console have put up there. Pretty nice. Maybe I'll use that for my thumbnail. So now we're going to head on over into the garage and have a look at the stats of the Chieftain CTR, which I've got here on the left of the screen for you. And like I said, we're going to be comparing to the G.I. Joe Wolverine, the Stritzvon S1, the Chieftain Hybrid 120, and the Leopard VT2. Just a quick note on my colour coding. If you haven't seen my tank reviews before, red is the worst in the comparison, green is the best, and orange is somewhere in between, and yellow are the base stats highlighted with my commander and equipment setup applied, and I'll talk you through that a little bit later on. But we are going to start here with the Silver XP and Commander XP bonus, as this is a premium vehicle. On the Chieftain CTR, you have a 50% silver bonus, which is the joint worst in this comparison, but only by 5%, so you'll still be making plenty of silver. Well, that is until the Cold War silver changes. We'll have to see how that affects everything on the 30th of January, I believe it was when they said on the stream. In terms of your XP bonus, 10%, which is the lowest in this comparison. The Wolverine has 25%. However, you have the best Commander XP bonus, good for training your commanders up, 25%, which is 15% better than the other vehicles in this comparison. Now we're going to have a look at the base stats, and as always I start with the hit points, the view range, and the concealment rating of these vehicles. And you're probably wondering why I am using concealment rating when we're talking about medium heavy tanks and even a pretty large tank destroyer. Well, you are going to see in just a little bit that this thing can be a pretty sneaky tank destroyer, as well as a pretty dangerous brawler on a ridgeline. And the reason that I've chosen these particular vehicles for this comparison is the Wolverine is the only kind of tank destroyer with a single fire gun. It has ATGMs as well, but the single fire gun, pretty decent DPM, I guess, and you can compare it to the Chieftain CTR because it is the kind of closest tank destroyer era 2. The Chieftain Hybrid 120, it shares the exact same gun as the Chieftain CTR, and the Leopard VT2, very good hold down, similar gun depression values, and another Ridgeline Warrior, and it's probably the best comparisons that I can make it, because the other tank destroyers, you can't really compare. The M50 Ontos with its 6-shot autoloader and no armour, you can't compare it to the Chieftain CTR, so that is the reason for me picking these vehicles. So the Chieftain CTR concept test rig, it's got 2,650 hit points, which is quite a lot of hit points for a tank destroyer. It's 50 more than the Wolverine, which is the worst in this comparison. Not as good as something like the heavy tank in this comparison, the Chieftain Hybrid 120, which has 2,950, but that's to be expected. And of course, it does fall behind the Leopard VT2, which as a medium tank with lots of armour has 2,930, but yeah, plenty of hit points to be able to take between sort of 3 and 5 shells, or maybe 1 or 2 ATGMs, depending on what hits you. In terms of your view range, you have 510 meters view range, not quite as good as the Wolverine, better than the Chieftain Hybrid 120, and yeah, not as good as the Leopard VT2, but as we get onto the steel concealment figure, which is 32656 meters, again, it's not quite as good as the Wolverine, so not quite as sneaky, but it is sneakier than the heavy and medium, which is to be expected. But this is quite a good level for such a large sort of profile vehicle, and you can get it down to a very, very sneaky level if you so wish. And I will tell you how I did that in the command and equipment talk in just a little bit. But when you sort of compare that or combine that with the 510 meters view range, you can outspot your opponents very, very nicely. And in one of the gameplays at the end, I will show you how I outspotted another Chieftain CTR to kind of help us take down the end game scenario in that particular game. So definitely stay around for that gameplay. So mobility wise, this is where there's a bit of a downside to the Chieftain CTR. You have 750 engine power, which is the worst in this comparison, and you also have the worst power to weight by a long, long way. The closest is the Leopard VT2 at 17.76, and the Chieftain Hybrid 120 and the G.I. Joe Wolverine out there at front at 22 and 23 power to weight respectively. So you are very, very sluggish to get up to your top speed, and when you get there, you only have a top forward speed of 48 kilometers an hour, unless you use the mobility equipment to boost up your mobility of this vehicle. The fastest vehicles when you get up to your top speed are the Chieftain Hybrid 120 and Leopard VT2 at 65.2 kilometers an hour. And of course the G.I. Joe Wolverine has the siege mode where it can go into mobility mode and it can go 60 forward. So yeah, the Chieftain CTR pretty sluggish in that regard. In terms of the reverse speed, it's a little bit better. You are 26 kilometers an hour fast in reverse, which is better than the Hybrid 120, slightly better than the Leopard VT2, not quite as good as the Wolverine. However, if it's in siege mode, you are faster in reverse, and it's good for getting down off of ridge lines, because that is where you're going to be spending the most amount of your time on those ridge lines, using the thick frontal sloped armor, and yeah, using that 26 kilometers an hour reverse speed. So that's a pretty nice thing about this vehicle. In terms of the hold reverse, 38 degrees a second, and it's very important for the Chieftain CTR as your gun is locked into the actual hull of your tank. Like the Wolverine, you have to turn the hull to be able to move your gun around on your enemy. You have a much better hold reverse than the Wolverine, which is down there at 30 degrees a second. You don't have quite as good as the Chieftain Hybrid 120 or Leopard VT2, but it's pretty good for a non-turreted tank destroyer. So you can make the most of that and improve it with commander skills or mobility equipment if you so wish. And lastly, in terms of the turret reverse, in this particular comparison, this will be talking about the gun speed, so 36 degrees a second, and you can only move your gun 15 degrees to the left and to the right. It's a lot quicker, or twice as quick, than the G.I. Joe Wolverine's gun rotation speed at 18 degrees a second, and it's just shy of the Chieftain Hybrid 120 and Leopard VT2, so pretty poor mobility on the whole, but not bad reverse speed, and the hold reverse for a non-turreted tank destroyer combined with that gun rotation speed or turret reverse isn't too bad, and you can make it work. And there's going to be a lot of red and orange on this comparison, and don't let that fool you. You wait until you see the gameplay of how good this tank can be on the battlefield. Now we're going to go on to the gun, and this is a 120mm caliber gun, the same gun that is on the Chieftain Hybrid 120, barring a few gun handling and DPM stats. On this 120mm caliber gun, you can fire 3 flavours of ammunition. You have standard and premium, APF, SDS and HESH as your third ammunition choice, which is great news. That boosts up your alpha damage and boosts up your DPM. In terms of your alpha damage then, so for your standard and premium, 530 alpha damage, the same as the Chieftain Hybrid 120 and much better than the Leopard VT2's 510 and Wolverine's 480. And if you do use those HESH rounds and penetrate, you boost that to 680 on those HESH rounds, which is the same as the Chieftain Hybrid 120. In terms of your penetration, very nice standard penetration on the Chieftain CTR 418mm, and if you want to boost up with your premium rounds, it goes up to 483mm, with your HESH coming in at 290mm of penetration, so very nice penetration. In terms of your speeds, 1530 meters a second for your standard and premium rounds. Very good for sniping at mid to long ranges, however you will lose penetration over distance, so definitely bear that in mind. And with your HESH, give double the amount of lead because you've only got 660 meters a second, which is the slowest round shared with the Chieftain Hybrid 120 on any of these third ammunition selections. So overall, how does this gun compare to the other guns in this comparison? Well, the Wolverine has a 105mm with 480 alpha damage. Chieftain Hybrid 120, the exact same stats on the gun, and the Leopard VT2, slightly less alpha damage at 510 on all 3 of its rounds, as it has heat as its third ammunition selection. It has the superior shell velocity, but only by a little bit, and it has the superior premium penetration at 504mm, meaning it's better for firing at things like the FV4211 and things like firing at the Chieftain CTR from the front. However, you have very nice penetration, and you don't have to fire too many premium rounds at all, so good for those free-to-play players. And it's lovely to have HESH instead of heat, because heat's largely useless thanks to the composite armour in Era 2, so HESH can boost up your DPM and alpha damage and hit those lightly armoured targets for a lot of damage. So good news for this gun, and it only gets better when we're talking about the gun handling and the DPM. So on the Chieftain CTR, you have 1.5 second aim time. This is not the best. The best is the Wolverine in its siege mode when it's got its gun mode activated. That's 1.2 seconds. However, you are better than the Chieftain Hybrid 120 and much better than the Leopard VT2. In terms of the accuracy, again, the Wolverine pips it when it's in its siege mode, but only by a little bit. You've got 0.26 on the Chieftain CTR, Wolverine's got 0.25, and you're better than the Hybrid 120 with the same gun stats, and also the Leopard VT2 is out there at a lowly 0.34 accuracy. And now we're going to get on to the really juicy aspect, in my opinion, of this gun, and it's the DPM. You have a DPM of 4,182, so you're the only tank in this comparison which has gone above the 4,000 mark. The Chieftain Hybrid 120, with the same alpha, pen and shell velocity speeds, has slightly less DPM, and that's already got a pretty tasty DPM, so you've got fantastic DPM on this vehicle. In terms of the Wolverine, it's got 3,643, and the worst in this comparison goes to the Leopard VT2 at 3,121. So what does that mean on your reload? Well, you reload one shot in 7.6 seconds. As you can see from the figure here on the right, I've got mine down to 5.69, so you can improve your DPM quite dramatically depending on how you like to set up your vehicle, and I'll show you how I've done mine in just a little bit as we finish off the stats part. In terms of ammo capacity, 54 rounds, which is the best in this comparison, but I wish you could have a few more because of that great DPM. You can run out on those longer, more drawn out battles, 4 more than the Wolverine and Hybrid 120, and you have 12 more than the Leopard VT2. In terms of gun depression, a great 10 degrees, which is very good on a ridgeline. The only tank that doesn't have 10 degrees in this comparison is the Leopard VT2, but it's still got 9, so pretty decent on a ridgeline. In terms of gun elevation, 20 degrees on the Chieftain CTR, which is fantastic, the same as the Hybrid 120 and VT2, and 8 degrees better than the Wolverine. Unfortunately, you do have that limited sort of gun traverse, 15 degrees to the left and right. It's better than the Wolverine, which has 3 degrees to the left and right, but obviously not as good as a fully rotational turret like on the Hybrid 120 and the Leopard VT2. So overall, as a package, you've got a good silver bonus and very good for training crews, the best in this comparison at training your commander. A very healthy slug of hit points for your tank destroyer. Good healthy view range, very, very nice concealment, not quite as good as the Wolverine, but still very sneaky, and that's a good ratio to have for outspotting your opponents. You are sluggish, very slow at your top forward speed, but you've got a decent enough reverse, hull and turret traverse. Great gun handling, great shell velocity, very nice penetration, and of course that best in class DPM. You've just got to be able to make the non-turreted TD work on the battlefield, and you've got to choose how you wish to set up your vehicle. So how do I like to set up the Chieftain CTR? Well, I've chosen this setup from the start and I've carried it with me the whole way through. Some people might want to tweak it, but this is just a recommendation. So what I went with is the advanced concealment, the improved ventilation and advanced loader as my equipment, and on my commander I've chosen to run 6th Sense, Spawn Leader, Rapid Loading, Steady Aim, Rapid Aim, Snapshot, Camouflage Expertise, Silent Driving and Clutch Braking. So in terms of my equipment, I've chosen to boost up the concealment because I want to try and play that sneaky role. In certain parts, in certain games, having that little bit extra camo can let you get the jump on your enemy, and you're going to see it in one of the gameplays. And I've chosen to run vents and the loader to further improve the DPM, and of course the vents will help out the view range and gun handling as well. And in terms of my commander skills, 6th Sense and Born Leader is standard on every one of my commanders. Rapid Loading to help the DPM. Then I've got 3 gun handling skills to help the already very nice gun handling and make it pinpoint accurate, because you will be moving the hull around and you want to get it as accurate as possible once you've got your hull around to snap shots at your enemy. 2 gun concealment skills, I should say, on your commander in the form of Camouflage, Expertise and Silent Driving. Silent Driving is a must in my opinion for getting into position nice and sneakily and getting your concealment down to a level where you can outspot pretty much every medium and heavy tank and even some of the other tank destroyers if they're not set up correctly. And lastly, Clutch Braking to improve the hull rotation by 7.5% as you are a non-turreted tank destroyer. And if I was going to recommend you switch anything out, if you don't like that sneaky playstyle, because it can brawl exceptionally well thanks to the armour, take out the advanced concealment and then it's your choice. You can use the advanced powertrain to give that engine power a bit of an oomph, but probably the traction system is the best choice. 10% to your max speed and your hull rotation will help out a bunch. And in terms of the commander, I wouldn't change too much, but if you don't like the concealment, take off the 2 concealment perks. You can run the mobility things like off-road driving, and you could also run anything else, maybe even Deadeye, to improve your critical hits with your standard and your premium rounds. And yeah, the world is your oyster. Tracks to keep your tracks on as you're a non-turreted tank destroyer. But this is just my recommendation. You can tweak it to your liking. And in terms of consumables, I run large med, large repair, and the enhanced smokescreen to further improve the concealment, get out of harm's way if I need to. But of course, that is up to you. So if you run the exact same setup as me, you can see here that the view range has jumped from 510 to 542 meters, and the steel concealment has gone from 32656 down to 109.83 meters. So very, very sneaky indeed. Not quite as sneaky as a Wolverine or an M50 Ontos or another tank destroyer like that, but good enough to outspot a lot of other tanks on the battlefield, and that can come in clutch in certain games. In terms of the mobility, as I've not used any mobility equipment, the hull traverse has improved thanks to the clutch braking to 41.28 degrees a second, and the gun or the turret traverse 42.7 degrees a second thanks to the gun handling skills. And in terms of the aim time and accuracy, it's dropped to 1.41 second aim time, 0.22 accuracy, so pinpoint, you can snap your gun around, your hull around, get on target. Great aim time, fantastic accuracy, and the DPM has jumped up to 5,592, because instead of reloading in 7.6 seconds, we now reload in 5.69 seconds, which is an insane DPM, and if you can catch people out in the open, you can absolutely rip them to shreds with this vehicle. It's very, very dangerous indeed. So that's it for my stats review of the Chieftain CTR. We're now going to head on over into the armor viewer in the garage, have a look at the armour of this vehicle, as it's very, very useful, and then we're going to get stuck into the first of the gameplay, so I'll see you over in the garage in just a second. So we are now in the garage and we're going to have a look at the armour viewer of the Chieftain CTR. This thing is very, very strong frontally when you're using the 10 degrees of gun depression. That sloped frontal armour is very thick, but remember, you are a non-turreted tank destroyer. If you get double tracked, people get around you, they're going to take you out very, very easily, and there's nothing you can do to get your gun around on your enemy, as it only goes 15 degrees to the left and to the right, which is why it's imperative to improve the hold reverse if you can with your commander and equipment setup. So of course the first thing to notice is that you are a very long vehicle, but you do have a nice concealment rating if you choose to run a kind of half concealment build with the commander and equipment setup. But when you are spotted, you are going to be a long target from the side, so try and keep everyone to the front that you are going to be facing, and of course keep the biggest threat directly faced at the front of your armour. So the thickest part of the armour is a weird section in between here behind the gun at 349mm. Then you've got the front sloped portion of your hull. As you can see, the sides of this are 340 millimeters, and there's going to be layers of armor over the front of this hull, as it's composite armor in era 2. The outermost portion of this is 250 millimeters, and that goes onto the top of the vehicle as well, and it's extremely well angled, as you can see. And that's not the only plate over the front of this vehicle. We will get to the other sections in just a bit. You have a midsection here, so down underneath that frontal sloped upper hull, you've got this kind of mid-bar here at 200mm, which if you are struggling to penetrate this thing from the front, this is a great option. If you have kind of mid to high penetration, even lower penetration can go through this as the angling is less. You do have a cupola here. As you can see, the bottommost section is 152mm. When you are using your 10 degrees of gun depression in this vehicle, it's very hard to hit the cupola on this tank, especially if it's wiggling on a ridgeline and pulling backwards and forwards. The next section is the innermost section of the upper hull, 101mm of armor added to this 250mm section on the outermost portion, and again that sloped back very well, and there's all that kind of space in between there allowing shells to be absorbed, and this absorbs 80 gems from my experience quite well from the front, and yeah, it blocks a hell of a lot of damage. I'll tell you how much penetration you roughly need to go through the front of this thing in just a little bit, but we're going to carry on through these sections. The front sort of half of this vehicle, the sidearm, is 88mm, and you're not going to be getting overmatched on this section. To get overmatched, they need a 265mm caliber gun or higher. However, the rear half, as I'll quickly skip back to it, is 38mm. So if this thing is side scraping, or you can see the side of this vehicle like this, you are able to overmatch if you have a 115mm caliber gun or higher. This section here you can overmatch from the side, and this section also is the top of the cupola, 38mm, so that's a nice easy penetration if you do have a shot on that. So we've talked about the side armor there. The actual lower plate, 76mm, a pretty easy penetration for a lot of guns, because if it's coming over a ridgeline, you can just shoot up into it. However, at extreme angles when you're shooting down on it, or it's coming around corners, this can ricochet thanks to the angling. As you can see, it's extremely well angled. So shoot that mid bar and you should be able to go through. This can be a bit of a bait, but you still can go through it. So definitely watch out for that. In terms of the other sections of armor, there's different spaced armor over the side, like 38mm over the rear, 38mm of side armor. The rear of the vehicle easily penetrated by HE and ATGMs, 25.4mm. The tracks themselves, 25mm of spaced armor. And then you have these side skirts at 19.05mm, protecting a little bit against HE damage. Not really going to protect against ATGMs, but you know, every little helps. Then you've got this 19.05 over the rear of the vehicle as well. Another section of space of 12mm over the cupola, and then some more spaced 6mm. So occasionally you can absorb an ATGM from the side, but not usually about 98% of the time I've been penetrated with an ATGM from the side, and if you're going to fire it, fire towards the rear of the vehicle where there is less spaced armour. But what do you need to know about this vehicle? Well, frontally it's an absolute behemoth. These sections here, I will just go to the sections I'm talking about above the tracks. They can be very, very misleading, and they're not actually hit points for the side of the armour. So these 6mm sections above the tracks, if it's looking at you frontally, don't shoot that, because all you're going to be doing is shooting spaced armour. There's no hole behind it. You won't be able to penetrate. It will just get absorbed into this spaced armour. The only place that you can penetrate the sort of frontal hole is the cupola, the lower plate, the mid plate, and the upper plate. So do not shoot the spaced armour directly from the front. You won't be able to go through. So very, very well sloped frontal armour, very, very strong. If you can't see the mid plate or the lower plate and it's using its gun depression, you're not going to be going through it with very many guns in Era 2. Only the highest of high penetrations above 500mm has a chance of going through. However, the more you get above it, it negates that sloping and you can go through it pretty reliably with sort of 300 to 400mm of penetration if you're looking at it like this. But yeah, even when it's dead on and it's sloped like that, you're going to still need in the sort of 450 higher millimeters of penetration, from my experience, to be able to go through. Your best bet is to wait for a shot on the lower plate or the mid plate, as that's when it's cresting the ridge. You should be able to get shots, and if you're a good CTR player, you're going to be using those ridge lines, creeping forward. Don't give your mid or your lower plate, only expose your upper hole. Try and use the full extent of your 10 degrees of gun depression, and yeah, that will hide your cupola as well. When it's on a ridge line and it's hiding its lower and mid plate, the only option you do have is tracking, getting around it, or getting a shot into its cupola, but it can be hard when it's wiggling, moving on a ridgeline. But yeah, if you track it and get around it, yeah, then you're going to be laughing because it can't get its gun around, and it should have bought a turret. If you're shooting it from the side and trying to track it and damage it, try and shoot towards the rear, the closest part to the hole, I should say, of the drive wheel. As you can see, it kind of overextends over the hole, so you don't want to just track it and do no damage. Shoot to the middle, to the back, and you should go through that drive wheel, penetrate and track it in place. And of course, you can't shoot this section here from the side at the front if you've got 340mm or more penetration, because as you can see, it is nice and flat. ATGMs, you can go through it if you're above it, and especially like the roof, engine decks, very easy. From the side, shoot towards the rear. From the front, it can absorb quite a lot of rounds, and it's very, very thick. If you're charging at your enemy, keep moving at them when you're advancing between shells if you're playing in that brawler kind of mode, and people are going to really struggle to go through this. And the further you are away from your enemy, the less penetration they're going to have if they're using APF SDS, as it loses penetration over distance, and the more thick your armor will become, or the more effective your armor will become. So very strong from the front. Don't be baited into shooting those side armor. You're going to have to shoot the mid plate or the cupola, or just get around it, flank it, and then rip it to shreds. But yeah, get it on a ridgeline and enjoy your Chieftain CTR. That's a look at the armor. We're now going to head on into the first gameplay, so I'll see you over in there in just a second. So we are on Vineyards in the first gameplay of today's video. We're here in the Chieftain CTR, and we've spawned over in D0. We're going to be making our way straight ahead of us towards that sort of little mound with the building, where we can use the 10 degrees of gun depression and hopefully get some shots downrange towards the north and over towards the western side of the map. Got to be a bit careful about getting shot in the side from the kind of city town location over towards the west, but that's where we're going to try and get the building in the way to protect the large side profile of this vehicle. You can see it took us quite a while to get into this position and only a short distance. And there you can see the absolutely fantastic gun handling of this vehicle, pinpoint accurate. There's hardly any bloom on the reticle when you're moving, and that reverse speed feels pretty nice as well. And yeah, you get through these rounds very quickly indeed with this fantastic DPM. Quite low profile, as you can see, so you can use some very obscure sort of ridge lines to your advantage that you can't use in other taller vehicles. And now we're just trying to get as much damage on these tanks as they're crossing as possible. Going to wait for this Conqueror Mark to be fire, and yeah, he's behind a ridge line. I didn't realise, but it doesn't really matter. We're going to be reloaded again very quickly, and thanks to the fact that we have boosted up our concealment rating, we are not getting spotted as of yet when we are firing, which is allowing us to get some nice free shots, and that's the first time we get spotted spotted in this battle as we go straight through the upper hull of the FV4-11, showing you how good the penetration is on these standard rounds. And as you can see at the bottom, I carry 24 standard, 24 premium, and 6 of those lovely Hesh rounds to use in every battle. Of course, that's up to you. If people load the gold in this tank, and as long as you penetrate, you'll still be making silver, even with the changes coming at the end of the month to the silver economy. So we've picked up 2,000 damage in this position, 466 assistance with 440 blocked. The FV4-11 gets blocked in that position, and we're just trying to find enough of a ridgeline where we can use the full extent of our 10 degrees of gun depression. We get a shot there into the FV4-11. We're getting a little bit of assistance as we're sort of on the front lines now, and this is one of the downsides to the Chieftain CTR. When you are in a position and there's nowhere for you to run, even if you wanted to chance it, the mobility is not good enough. You'd have to give up the rear of your vehicle to all of these tanks behind us, and you've just got to sit and fight. There's not many tanks I'd rather sit and fight in on ridgelines than the Chieftain CTR, but if you get outnumbered and overwhelmed, as soon as they get to your side and they come at you, then yeah, you're going to be back into the garage. I think the concealment rating there actually helped us avoid an ATGM from that AMX-13 SS-11T CA, because I think we weren't spotted, whereas the tank to the right of us was. We're now taking shots in the rear, and this is the problem of not having a turret. This was my first game in the Chieftain CTR, and I just wanted to include it to show what you can do with no experience in this vehicle. If you just set it up correctly, you can have some pretty decent gameplay in this vehicle. It's still very close in this game, and at this point we should be completely taken out. They've got shots at us, they don't know where to shoot us because you're a new tank. They're shooting at our upper hull, and you can see that we are absorbing a lot of rounds as well as bouncing. They're just probably either hitting our space armor to the sides or they're not going for us. We have put a shot there into the lower part there, I believe, of the lower plate, or that midsection on the Chieftain CTR, and as he went down, we all managed to go through his upper hull with a premium round there. We're trying to go through this little hatch there on the FV4-11, which we managed to do, and unfortunately we do get taken out, but we make a little bit of a last stand, and hopefully our teammates on the 0 line can put in some work. So that's it for my part in this battle. It's going to be a while before it gets completely taken out, but we're going to go towards the end, see how we did, and see where we finish up on the leaderboard. So I'll see you at the end of this battle in just a little bit. So my team finally managed to take that one down, and we still finished in the 3rd position on our team, even though we died right at the sort of start of this battle, showing you, yeah, it's just the DPM that you can put out in this thing is insane. You can brawl very nicely, get all of that assistance, get all of that damage, and you can still have great games even if your impact is short-lived. So in that battle, which lasted 6 minutes 30 seconds, we died quite early on, made a good profit with or without a premium account, and we picked up 4.6 direct damage, or 4.6 thousand direct damage, I should say, 1.7 thousand assistance, blocked 440, but we did absorb quite a few more rounds into our tracks and spaced armor. I'm not quite sure that figure adds up to what I was seeing in the gameplay, but 6.6k combined, my first ever game, and yeah, that was kind of one of the more lower end of the battles I was having. My session today was really, really good. Every game seemed to feel really, really nice in this vehicle. So I wanted to include that one just to show you that when you get into a bad position, or you get overwhelmed in a position, you can't really run, and that's one of the major downsides to this vehicle. But when you are there, you can put out the damage very, very quickly. So that's it for that game on Vineyards. We're now going to head on into the second gameplay of today's video. So you're joining me here 1 minute into this battle here on Sunset Coast, and we are in the Chieftain CTR, trying to head towards the centre of this map. A lot of our team, as you can see, have gone towards the south. I didn't really want to go into that position as we didn't spawn close enough to be able to get down there before the rest of our team, which is one of the major drawbacks to this vehicle. There aren't too many drawbacks to this vehicle, however the mobility definitely is one of them. So we're going to sit up here on this ridgeline overlooking the centre of this map in E5. We do have a couple of medium tanks behind us, just seeing if we're going to get any shots on anything in the centre of the map. The 120 does come out. We're just going to auto-lock it at this distance. We actually damage his turret ring there, and we roll for 536. and now we are ready to rock and roll again. Just see if I can get any shots at anything that's hiding towards the east of this map, and if there isn't anything, we're going to turn around and see if we can go towards the north and maybe flank all of the enemies that are hiding in the back. And I wanted to include this gameplay because although it has a very slow start, I've already cut a minute off of this battle and we've only still picked up 536 damage. Things do heat up towards the mid and latter stages of the battle thanks to this DPM. So we're on this ridgeline. There's nowhere really this Leopard 1A5 can shoot at us, and when he's coming up over the ridgeline cresting, I'm going to go towards him, so we try and invite him to shoot into our upper plate. We do that and we manage to rip that Leopard 1A5 to shreds without taking any damage. We're up to 2k and now we can push on. This is where having mobility equipment would be nice, but you do so at the sacrifice of things like either your concealment or your DPM and gun handling. And if I was going to sacrifice one thing to get better mobility, I would definitely sacrifice the concealment, because this tank can play a brawling role like a heavy tank very, very well. It's a heavy tank destroyer that can also play a sneaky role on the battlefield, which is why I like to have that concealment. But yeah, it's definitely not necessary for all players, it's just what I prefer. And now we're just ripping this Conqueror to shreds. We do take a damaging shot as we are cresting the ridge. He manages to get one up into our lower plate or the mid plate. But yeah, he's reversing in fear, and we're just managing to absolutely rip him to shreds. Advancing, you've got to put pressure on your opponents, and that's the way that you can get some very tasty damage in this machine. So we managed to get one into the T-72, two into the T-72 before he manages to come back around the ridge. The Leopard 1 is going to flank us, but there's not much I can do about it. I'm just going to focus on this T-72. Thankfully, the T-62 behind us gets a shot in as well. We turn around, the hold reverse we have improved, helps us get around, and now we're going to be able to get 2 shots in on this Leopard 1 as he is escaping. I quickly switch to the Hesh, as I will be able to penetrate the Leopard 1 with the Hesh and deal some very, very nasty damage. But of course, the Leopard 1, yeah, quite rightfully, is trying to run away and get one last shot in this battle. We're going to snap one in with the Hesh, but with the lower shell velocity, yeah, that one was never going to really go in. Not really sure we're going to catch up with this Leopard 1, but yeah, that slow start, and we managed to pick up 7.1k direct damage, just shy of 1,000 assistance, and blocked 1,060 with 2 kills in a really, really quick time. We finished second on our team, and we didn't do anything for the first kind of, 2 minutes of this battle. That's only a second class sniper medal. Yeah, good profit with or without a premium account, just showing you the absolute annihilation you can put on your enemies if you pressure them on ridge lines, and yeah, if you use your armor to your advantage, use those ridge lines, and yeah, put those heavy shells out and damaging your enemy. So that's it for the gameplay here on Sunset Coast. We're now going to head on into the third gameplay. So now we are on Fisherman's Bay in the third gameplay of today's video. We've spawned in the north in a standard battle, and I'm going to make my way towards the mid-ridge, use our 10 degrees of gun depression and this staggering DPM. So we've got my DPM up to 5,592, 0.22 accuracy and 1.41 second aim time. And yeah, we've improved our turret rotation, or the gun rotation speed, improved our hold traverse, and yeah, hopefully that should allow us in this close quarter combat situation on this mid-ridge to put some nasty damage out. We're going to try and fire through the wall here at this RDF LT, which we managed to do, and yeah, we're already reloaded as we get to this ridge line to put some more damaging shots on the opponents. We track the RDF LT in place. I'm very confident that he's not really going to know where to shoot me or going to have the sort of time to actually sit there and shoot me, so I'm just going to go forward, get another shot into him. We track him in place, get some assistance as he gets taken out by our friendly 30B. We're now going to try and get a shot on this Mobat, going to see if there's any destructible cover in between me and him. Just put a firing shot down range. Unfortunately, it just hits the dirt and doesn't do anything. Got to be a little bit careful as there is a rock crawler there over on the one line over towards the kind of west of this map. However, I'm feeling pretty confident on this ridge. I've got enough buildings in between me so I can come up here, try and crest these ridge lines and get some shots into this bandit, and also hopefully the Mobat as well. And this is kind of where you want to be in your Chieftain CTR on a ridgeline, just peeking over just enough so that you can get shots on your opponent, but just enough so that they can't get shots on your mid plate or lower plate. And yeah, try and move around on those ridgelines as much as possible to avoid people shooting your cupola. And yeah, you're going to make people just back up because there's nothing they can do to actually penetrate you. They're below me, and with the angling on the frontal hull of this tank, yeah, it's very nasty indeed. We're going to whiff quite a few shells now at this MOBAT. Doesn't really bother me an awful lot. We bounce off his cupola there. Could go and load the premium, but the shells are a luxury in this tank, so if it's going to be a more longer drawn out battle, I do want to keep those premium rounds for later in the battle. I'm not sure where that one went. Eventually we're going to start hitting our shells again, and there we go, right underneath the gun into the turret of the MOBAT, which we can easily penetrate with the good standard penetration of this vehicle. Track that MOBAT in place, and we should get the reload. No, not quite, and we don't manage to get the kill. The 30B2 gets the kill. BMP2 gets spotted right at the back. We're going to hopefully reload quick enough to get the kill there, and because of this great DPM and the great reload, you're just able to pick up kills, pick up damage like no man's business. We do derp a shot into the ground as a warning shot, but we've already picked up 5k direct damage, 2.4k assistance. It's still a relatively close game, but I'm pretty confident if I just play this one with a little bit of patience here, and hopefully we can then advance when this rock crawler falls back underneath their guns, and then we can either get some assistance or get some damaging shots. We are getting flanked by a heavy tank, so got to be a bit wary of the enemy heavy tank, but I can always turn around quick enough probably to deal with him. And yeah, now it's all about trying to get these tanks out of here over on the west end, head back towards our base as it's looking like it's under threat. So again, the mobility a bit annoying here. We're not quite quick enough to get into position to be able to get some damaging shots there, but the rock crawler obliges by coming up forward. We get a shot into him, and now we're just going to advance on this rock crawler, use our heavy tank's distraction to put some nasty shots into this rock crawler. He gets taken out by our friendly T-72. Smokescreen gets deployed by myself as we do take a shot in the rear, and now there is a nearly full health Conqueror, and yeah, we're going to go to town on this Conqueror. And look at this DPM, you're absolutely ripping apart a British heavy tank there, and we're going to ignore him now, let our friendly tanks kill him as we are getting capped out. And this is where the mobility would have been nice to have. We can't actually see where the tanks are. Hopefully our medium tank is going to spot the tanks in the distance. Fortunately, the medium tank does. I quickly stop and try and snapshot, but didn't realise there was a rock in the way. Our medium tank's doing absolutely great work, saved the game for us there and allowing us to get back into position. Sometimes you're not going to have that mobility to get back in this tank, but you've just got to try and think about where you want to be on the battlefield. Think about your positioning a little bit more than you would in some of the other faster vehicles, but when you get there you can do absolutely crazy things with this gun. This BMP2 looks like he's going to be taken out by our friendly tanks over there. He is taken out by our RDF LT. The T-72 AV is taken out, and that's a wrap for this game, where we finish in the MVP slot. Great profit with without a premium account. High caliber, only a second class for 1456 base XP, 2 kills, 7.7k direct damage, 3.3k assistance, and that's only 4 minutes and 54 seconds. So when you get into those positions, if you think about your positioning, be wary of tanks trying to flank you. Yeah, just keep everything frontally. You're going to do absolutely great in this vehicle. So that's it for the third gameplay. We're now going to head on into the fourth and final gameplay of today's video. So you're joining me here 1 minute into this battle on Karelia. We're in the Chieftain CTR. We are hull down. Everything is directly in front of us. We can use our great hull armour to hopefully bounce some shots and get shots down range towards the south of this map. We've come here where most of our team have situated themselves in G9, G0, and we're going to try and push the tempo on this flank because we only have a few tanks towards the north, and if they fall then our base is under threat and we are likely to be flanked. So you can see here positions like this with these ridge lines are absolutely ideal for the Chieftain CTR, and we're managing just to pop up only expose our upper hull, which is sloped backwards. They are not going to be able to go through us unless they're firing very high penetration rounds, and even then, I think there's some auto ricochet angles the more you rock backwards. They could shoot my cupola, but I'm trying to rock backwards and forwards, just trying to keep moving in case anyone is shooting at me. And yeah, just trying to keep every single thing frontally that I think is going to be shooting at me next. Got to be a bit careful of that M3A1 Bradley there. Hopefully he doesn't come over and try and put an ATGM into the front of us. If he does, we're just going to have to rock and try and absorb it into our upper hull. And yeah, we're kind of locked into this position now. We can't escape because we don't have a turret. We can't fire whilst we're trying to retreat, and we don't have the mobility to do so. So we're just going to have to sit here and fight. Fortunately for us, we have great penetration, good alpha, and a staggering amount of DPM combined with our very thick frontal armour. The only real downside I've had in this play session really is the mobility is frustrating to relocate, and the fact that you don't have a turret. But apart from that, you can play like a heavy tank destroyer, like a heavy tank would on the front lines. You can also play a sneaky tank destroyer role because you can get your concealment rating down to a very, very good level in this vehicle. And I feel like I've got a nice balance with the setup that I showed you in the start of today's video in the stats review. I feel like I've got enough concealment to be able to outspot my opponents, but also I've got enough DPM, gun handling and everything else in mobility to be able to be an absolute force on the battlefield. We've already picked up 2 kills. We blocked 50 damage, got 4,043, make that 4,541 damage and 65 assistance, and we're not even halfway there to what we're going to be doing in this particular battle. This is the best game that I've had in this tank thus far, but I have a feeling people are going to be doing insane amounts of damage in this tank, especially people that set it up correctly and they play aggressively. And yeah, it's one of those tanks that you actually do have to rely on the frontal armor. You bait people into shooting you, then you just rip them to shreds with the DPM of this tank. This particular gameplay is going to be a slightly longer gameplay. I think it runs to nearly 13 minutes, but it gets very, very tense towards the end. And yeah, we're going to have a great result in the Chieftain CTR, so that I hope you do stick around for the remainder of this gameplay, as you're going to see why I do insist upon even considering using a little bit of a concealment build with this tank, because we're going to be able to sort of pull out a clutch result here thanks to the fact that we have improved the concealment of this vehicle. So it's now 7 versus 7, so a very close game. We have this medium tank, the Type 79, which is hopefully going to be taken out by our 3 tanks to the left of me. And I'm going to make the time now to advance towards our base because we are so slow. You can see we are very sluggish. Only 40 going up a very small slope and now dropping to 36, 35, down to 30 kilometers an hour up this steeper incline. If we had the mobility equipment, it would of course improve it, but I just feel like it's not worth sacrificing the rest of what makes this vehicle an absolute danger to everyone else on the team when it's in position. So we get around this corner just enough, make sure we settle our gun round. I've taken the whole lock off using left on the D-pad so that I'm able to swing it around. If I auto aim, it will swing itself and it won't sort of stop itself in a certain position. We're able to get the whole round as quickly as possible, and we managed to defend our base there with the help of the Leopard 1A5, who takes out the FV4-11. It's now 3 versus 2. The enemy have got, I think it's a T-72B or a T-72, and also an enemy Chieftain CTR. I'm going to now go towards the south, try and get up on the hill. I'm just going to notify my team where I'm expected to go. That's where the Chieftain is, where I've just pinged in C3. Hopefully my heavy and medium can be the vision for me, and I can be the sort of sniper at the back. This is where having the concealment really, really helps this vehicle out. I feel very comfortable that I'm going to be able to outspot the heavy, and if the Chieftain CTR on the enemy team hasn't set it up with a concealment build, then that means we're going to be able to outspot him, and that allows us to get the jump on the opponents, and that might come in clutch. We'll just have to see in a little bit. We're up to 7.2k direct damage, 3 kills, 65 assistance and 1320 blocked. You can see you're incredibly slow going uphill. It's just one of the downsides you have to put up with this vehicle, but I feel like the gun really makes up for it, and the armour and the concealment are just they're just the cherry on top of the icing on top of the cake. So unfortunately our heavy and medium tank are still sat around our base. I'm trying to ask them to go and spot. I know I have plenty of hit points left, but knowing there's a Chieftain CTR out there in the distance, and knowing there's a heavy with superior mobility that will be able to get around me, I've got to be a little bit careful, and I'm not totally confident that my teammates are going to be helpful in this scenario. I'm not saying they're bad, I'm not sure. If I was in a platoon, I'd be more confident about my communication with my team. The enemy gets spotted. It is the T-72 heavy tank. We're going to see if we have a shot on him. Unfortunately, we're just low profile enough that we don't, but we actually managed to get some spotting assistance on the T-72, letting my team know that I am on the way. I'm going to come in from the left, try and create two different avenues of fire, and I'm going to hopefully help out our heavy tank who has pushed up. And you can see we're not spotted until we fire on this T-72. He is backing up from the heavy tank. I'm not sure he realises that we are behind him. We get another one into him, damage his engine there, I believe. And I now have to be a little bit careful. I'm constantly looking there. We managed to outspot the Chieftain CTR, which allows us to get the first shot off. Unfortunately, he's in a superior position. Our shot goes just high, and I'm now going to have to back up, use the smoke screen to help us get out of harm's way, and I'm just going to have to play the patient game here on this ridgeline. I did not want to push forward because the Chieftain CTR would have just ripped me to shreds. He had his mid plate, his lower plate covered, and there was no way that I would have been able to get out of that scenario. So we're just going to play a very patient game here. Unfortunately, it might be a little bit boring for YouTube, just this section here. We're up to 8.7k damage. I don't want to throw this one away because this could be an absolutely epic game. So I'm asking my medium tank, trying to ping him to go round and push out these tanks from a different angle. Unfortunately, there we give our position away as we fire, but you can see that we are constantly outspotting this Chieftain CTR, which allows us to get the jump on him. Unfortunately, he snapshots our cupola as we get one into him. I'm going to have to go for another one just to see. And again, we trade 1 for 1, and he's got more hit points, so now I've got to play ultra tight with 92 hit points. We've got up to 9.7k damage. I'm going to reverse out the way, act like I'm going to be going around to a different location, and hopefully, I'm just hoping our medium tank pushes up and tries to create a crossfire in this particular scenario. I'm very aware, as you can see, I'm constantly looking to my left, that one of the tanks is going to come down and try and flank me. I'm going to use this bush to try and further improve my concealment rating, but also try and confuse. I see some movement in the back. There is obviously either the Chieftain CTR or the T-72B there at the back, and I'm rocking on this ridgeline just in case they can see me with the true vision system, and hopefully we can bounce. The T-72B gets spotted by our medium tank, I believe. Hopefully he can get a shot on that heavy tank and take him out, and we're just going to have to be as careful as possible in this particular scenario. Just check in with the true vision system to see if anything's flanking me from the left. And this is where the concealment build is going to come in clutch for me, because if I can get the jump on the enemy Chieftain CTR every single time, it will allow me to whittle him down to enough where hopefully we can get a hesh round and just splash him to death. It's not looking like my medium tank is going to be going down the sort of one line and flanking them, but he is coming to help us at least. Unfortunately for us, we give our position away again, but I had to take the chance to get a shot as the Chieftain didn't have a shot back at us as he was reversing side on out of the way. But I noticed this heavy tank is now coming down after this M60, so we're going to relocate, see if we can team up with our medium tank and see if we can take out this T-72B. We're just going to full send this T-72B and hope that he bounces off our upper hole. From this distance, it will be a hard shot for him to hit our mid plate or our lower plate when we are on the move. And now we're going to get into this ridgeline here and just see if he pops back up. He does pop back up, but behind the rock in front of us. That allows our friendly M60 to take him out, and now it's 2 against 1. So as long as we create 2 different avenues, 2 different crossfires, we are going to be able, hopefully, to take out this Chieftain. going to poke up on this ridgeline, see if I can spot the enemy CTR, hopefully get some vision or at least some intel on where he is. We do manage to spot him. He doesn't know where we are, and this is where the concealment is coming in clutch for us. We get a shot into him, and now we're going to have to reset our stealth and hopefully do the same thing. He's falling back behind the rock, which will allow me to go up on this ridgeline, and that will allow me to hopefully reset and hopefully get the jump on him. But our M60 is going that way. I'm going to try and indicate to our M60 that I'm going to be going the long way, all the way around, back down the one line and creating a different avenue, and that hopefully will allow us again to get the jump on this CTR. And it's about playing the positional game here. We are not spotted. This Chieftain CTR is constantly spotted, and as long as this M60 doesn't get himself killed, we are going to hopefully get a nice side or rear shot into this Chieftain in this position. So we do have a dead wreck in front of me to use, so that's good to know. And this is where it's not very good for this Chieftain. He doesn't have a turret, and he is now a one-shot. I can see him coming out, so we try and get one into the low plate, but we do bounce, and I'm going to have to pop my smoke, and I'm going to reload Hesh rounds, try and splash him to death, and if we shoot towards the rear of his engine deck, we should be able to penetrate with these rounds as well. I'm contemplating going down into the dip, as that's where I believe the Chieftain CTR will go, but I feel like, I'm going to die if I do that, and I would have, because the Chieftain CTR comes round. We splash him, but only for 4. We're going to have to aim a little bit further backwards, and yeah, he's already fired. He has to settle, and that allows us to snap a shot into the rear. That takes us up to 4 kills, and we take up that clutch game thanks to the concealment build that we have with this vehicle. We finish in the MVP slot with 4 kills, 10.8k direct damage. That's only a first class, showing you people are playing this exceptionally well on the first day. 1684 base XP, 4 kills, 10.8k direct damage, 523 assistance, 1320 blocked. A great profit with or at a premium account, and this shows you everything this tank can do. You got the armor, the DPM, and the concealment. You just don't have the mobility, and you don't have a turret. But if you can get past that, you will really enjoy this tank. It's very, very competitive. I really like it. It's one of my favourite tanks that have been released for quite a long time, and probably my favourite, already my favourite in 2024. So that's it for today's video. I hope you found it entertaining and or enjoyable and or informative, or hopefully all 3. Let me know what you think of this tank in the comments down below. That was 11.4k combined on Karelia. We broke 10k in our first session in this vehicle. And yeah, until next time, I'll see you on the battlefield, and bye for now.